The grand ballroom of the Ethelstan Hotel was not merely a venue, it was a sanctum for the gilded elite, a cathedral of opulence where the very air seemed thick with the weight of accumulated wealth. 1,000 crystal teardrops in the chandeliers overhead refracted the light, casting a kaleidoscope of manufactured stars upon the assembled royalty of finance and industry. The murmur was a low, respectful hum, the sound of discrete power being negotiated and affirmed. And at the very center of this orbiting universe, the sun, around which all planets dutifully spun, stood Alistair Finch. His fortune, a sprawling, intricate empire built on the cold, ruthless calculus of data mining and predictive algorithms, was whispered about with a mixture of envy and fear. He was a man who had commodified human desire, turning whims and fears into a relentless revenue stream. To Alistair, every handshake was a potential contract, every smile a negotiable currency. Tonight, the price of basking in his presence was unadulterated adoration. He moved through the throng, a predator sleek in a Brioni tuxedo that cost more than the annual salary of most of the waitstaff. His smile was a perfectly calibrated tool, deployed to disarm and dominate, utterly devoid of the warmth that defines genuine human connection. In this moment, surrounded by sycophants and rivals alike, he felt utterly, invincibly untouchable, a king presiding over a castle built of stock options and offshore accounts. The humiliation, therefore, did not arrive with the dramatic flair of a thunderclap. It slithered in, insidious and silent, beginning with a mere flicker. The immense, high-resolution digital screen behind the podium, which had moments before been displaying the stark, imposing logo of Finch Holdings, suddenly went black. A soft, collective murmur, more of curiosity than concern, rippled through the black-tie crowd. Alistair, in the middle of a polished anecdote about the bespoke features of his newest super yacht, paused, a faint crease of irritation marring his brow. It was a minor annoyance, a technological hiccup, a fly buzzing at an otherwise perfect picnic. With a dismissive wave of his hand, he gestured to a cluster of anxious technicians lurking in the shadows. Then the screen glowed to life once more, but the corporate logo did not return. Instead, it displayed a simple, stark text document, its font utilitarian and unforgiving. The title was a dagger to the heart of his carefully crafted image. The Finch Foundation, a forensic audit, a narrative of deceit. The murmur in the room swelled, the curiosity now laced with a sharp, anticipatory tension. Alistair's polished smile tightened into a thin, bloodless line. This was a deviation from the script, an unapproved intrusion into his narrative, and he did not tolerate deviations. Before his security could intervene, the document began to scroll, its pace agonizingly slow, as if to ensure every guest could absorb the magnitude of the betrayal. It was all there, laid bare, in clinical detail. The labyrinthine network of shell companies in the Cayman Islands and Luxembourg, designed to be invisible. The millions systematically siphoned from charitable donations earmarked for pediatric cancer research and shelters for homeless veterans, their intended purpose coldly diverted. The emails showed the money flowing into Alistair's private coffers, funding his obscene indulgences. The private island in the Seychelles, the collection of rare museum-quality vintage cars that he never drove, the restoration of a French chateau he visited once a year. Then came the internal communications, projected for all to see, each bearing Alistair's own digital signature. In one, he quipped to his CFO about the delightful gullibility of the do-gooders, their empathy a weakness to be exploited. In another, he coldly calculated the precise tax benefits of what he termed strategic philanthropy, reducing human suffering to a line item on a balance sheet. The room was now utterly, profoundly silent. It was a vacuum of shock, so dense you could hear the gentle clink of a champagne flute as a waiter's hand trembled, the rustle of a silk gown as someone shifted uncomfortably. Alistair stood completely frozen, the blood draining from his face so rapidly it left him a pale, waxy mannequin of the man he had been moments before. His kingdom was crumbling not from an external attack by a rival, but from a meticulously planned, devastating leak from within his own digital fortress. This was not a financial loss. This was a total, humiliating annihilation of his persona. The philanthropist was a fraud. The captain of industry was a common embezzler. He was exposed, naked and petty, a thief standing foolishly in the spotlight of his own creation. The screen shifted once more, this time to a live video feed. The face that filled the screen sent a fresh jolt through the room. It was Eleanor Vance, the quiet, unassuming, and perpetually overlooked head of his accounting department. She was a woman he had once publicly chastised during a board meeting for her sentimental and inefficient budget reports, suggesting her compassion was a professional liability. She now sat, back straight, in what was clearly a television studio. Her voice, usually so soft people had to lean in to hear her, was now clear, steady, and amplified across the dead-silent ballroom, each word a nail in Alistair's coffin. "For 3 years," she began, her eyes looking directly into the camera and thus directly into the soul of the crumbling man before the screen, "I have witnessed the systematic and heartless corruption at the very heart of Finch Holdings. I have seen funds meant for dying children rerouted to fund personal jets. I have seen hope monetized and compassion exploited. What you have seen here tonight is merely the beginning. The evidence has been shared with international authorities and major news outlets. The truth, Mr. Finch, cannot be bought." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "And it certainly cannot be buried." The feed cut. The screen went black. The silence broke, but it did not shatter into uproar. It dissolved into something far more devastating for a man of Alistair's stature, a wave of cold, contemptuous judgment. The looks he received were not of fiery anger, but of a profound, icy disdain. He saw the socialites, whose invitations he once coveted, turn their heads away as if he were a bad smell. The politicians who had gladly accepted his campaign contributions now studied the intricate patterns on the carpet, their faces masks of feigned shock and sudden amnesia. He was suddenly, catastrophically invisible. He was a pariah, a leper in a room full of the supposedly clean. His eyes desperately scanned the crowd and found his wife, Celeste. Her face, usually a masterpiece of placid elegance, was a contorted map of horrified shame. Their eyes met for a fleeting second, and in that moment he saw not just anger, but a deep, personal betrayal. She had believed his lies, had defended him, had built her life within his gilded cage. Without a word, she turned, her sequined gown whispering a final goodbye against the floor, and disappeared into the crowd, leaving him utterly alone. Across the room, his most trusted business partners, the architects of his empire, were already on their phones, their voices low and urgent, doubtless issuing frantic statements of severance and planning their own escape. The world he had built over a lifetime, the respect he had commanded through fear and wealth, evaporated in those 5 minutes. He was just a man in a ridiculously expensive suit, standing alone in a sea of people, his immense wealth now nothing but a glaring testament to his moral bankruptcy. Then the flashes began. The paparazzi, who had been kept at a respectful velvet rope distance, now pressed against the barriers, their camera lenses trained on him like a firing squad. They captured every twitch of his eye, every bead of cold sweat tracing a path down his temple, the vacant, shattered look in his eyes. This image, not of a powerful magnate but of a humiliated, broken man, would be the one plastered on the front page of every paper from Wall Street to Hong Kong, the lead story on every news channel across the globe. His money was useless, his influence was ash, his name was now a synonym for corruption. In that single crystallizing moment of absolute ruin, Alistair Finch understood the hollow echo of his life's work. He had learned the price of everything and the value of nothing. He had been rich beyond measure, but he had never built anything of true, lasting worth. He had traded his integrity, his relationships, and his soul for digits in a shielded account. And now the account was closed, the shields vaporized. The foundation of his life was not marble or gold, but shifting, treacherous sand, and the tide of truth had finally, irrevocably come in. He had not just been exposed, he had been erased, his legacy rewritten in a single night from titan to thief. This is the inevitable, searing consequence of building on a foundation of lies. Your legacy, your reputation, the simple integrity of your name. These are the only currencies that hold their value beyond a lifetime. Do not wait for your own moment of public reckoning, for the walls to come crashing down around you in a storm of shame. Begin now, today. Embark on the quiet, honest, and profoundly necessary work of building a legacy of integrity. Start building something real, something that cannot be corrupted, something that will stand long after the last dollar has been spent. The time to forge a legacy that matters is now, before the screen flickers and the truth finds its voice.